There's a few common power sets out there for heroes. We all know them: fire, ice, shrinking, stretching. But even though they're shared, one of the best ones is the power of the voice, because there's so many different ways it can be used and different intensities. Thanks a lot to opera singer and friend Craig Irvin for sponsoring this episode of characters who use vocal powers in comics. This week we're diving into screamers, songbirds, canaries, and bolts. I'm Dan Umphin, and this is the Doomcast. First of all, do me a favor, hit subscribe and the bell. I make about one of these videos a week. They're all great. You wouldn't want to miss even one of them. So I appreciate you. Also, every week, my friend Damon Tucker and I are wrapping up each episode and doing a full breakdown of The Mandalorian. So stay tuned for those. Those should air approximately Friday. It's a lot of editing. Anyway, first up is Songbird. This Marvel anti-hero was created by Mark Gruenwald and John Byrne in the late 1970s, and is probably best known for her time with the Thunderbolts and later the New Avengers. Originally known as Screaming Mimi, she has an incredibly intense sonic scream, perfect pitch, which is a real superpower that people have, and each note that she sings has a different effect on human physiology, from blindness to hypnosis to euphoria to even nausea. She also has the ability, like Ulysses Claw, to create solid objects from raw sound. And she was the partner of a guy named Angar the Screamer, who is next on the list. Originally a hippie turned into a super screamer by Moondragon with Titan technology to fight against Thanos. He turned into a socially conscious criminal, is what ended up happening. He fought Spider-Man and Iron Fist at different points before being killed, while he and Songbird impersonated Hawkeye and Mockingbird. But his scream was turned into living sound, which was later just known as Scream. While in his original form, his voice caused hallucinations and toxic effects to anybody who was in the sound of his voice. The worse the effect got, the closer you got to him. Shriek was transformed by the Dark Force dimension, a thing that we have an episode coming up on also, very soon, after exposure to Cloak's containment. Shriek is usually a consort or partner to Carnage, or a host for Demogoblin. But her sonic powers aren't just limited to her voice, they can be manipulated into blasts or even used like telekinesis. She also had the power to bring the dark side out of people. Black Canary is probably one of the oldest superheroes in existence, a member of the original Justice Society. Her sonic screams are arguably some of the most intense. Her original character was married to a cop, but her current partner for decades has been the less powered Oliver Queen, who is merely an accomplished martial artist and liberal socialite. Dinah Lance, however, is that and a sonic scream powerful enough to disrupt new gods and give Kryptonians more than a little bit of trouble. Banshee is Sean Cassidy, a sonic-powered mutant whose mutation gives him a sonic scream, but also the ability to fly on those same sound waves. While his name derives from an Irish female spirit whose wailing foretells the death of a human being, Sean is a former Interpol agent who was involved with Moira McTaggart for a brief period of time. He was also a New York City cop, and briefly the Horseman of Death for Apocalypse. He is now currently possessed by a spirit of variance, kind of like Ghost Rider, and is known as Vox Ignis. Cy Spurrier is bonkers, but also pretty fun. Siren is Banshee's daughter, and probably the person who should be named Banshee. But for most of her life, she didn't know that she was Banshee's daughter. Her mother was killed shortly after her birth, and she was raised by her cousin, Black Tom Cassidy. While Siren's powers are pretty much the same as her father Sean's, she spent time with X-Factor and X-Force and romantically involved with Multiple Man. But she's also been possessed by a supernatural entity passed down for generations of Irish women called the Morrigan. Silver Banshee is a DC villain, normally a Superman villain inheriting her powers from an entity similar to the Morrigan in Irish myth, the Crone. Her clan passed the powers down, which included flight, super strength, fire manipulation, and the ability to wail a sonic scream of sorts, but also to kill anybody whose true name they know merely by looking at them. Frankly, that's one hell of a power set, exceeded only by one other person on this list. But that person is definitely not Hypno Hustler. He was briefly a Spider-Man villain whose powers were to hypnotize people with an electric guitar and hypno goggles, but he didn't actually use his voice. Also, apparently, they're making a solo film of him starring Donald Glover. True story. Crazy. Then of course there's Dr. Bong, also didn't use his voice. As his name suggests, no, he didn't use a water pipe, but instead a giant bell head and a little dinger that his hand was replaced with to hit himself in the head and create sound waves that would smash steel. Neither of them used their voice, but are both thoroughly ridiculous. And I wanted to include them on this list because D-list supervillains deserve love too. But Black Bolt is the king of the Inhumans and enthroned in Attilan, on the blue area of the moon. Blackagar Boltagon, his real, absolutely ridiculous name, it has a voice that is so destructive and so powerful even a whisper from him shatters mountains, and a full shout could do vastly worse, destroying whole cities or more. When was turned into a spacecraft, the amplified power from the city itself turned his voice into a weapon not unlike the Death Star. But unquestionably, he's the king of kings when it comes to voice-based power, but also his martial prowess, strength, flight, energy, and matter manipulation powers make him beyond Omega level. And if you want more on him, it's right here. Well, that closes out this list, and thanks again for watching. Thanks to Craig Irvin for sponsoring this episode. We'll see you again later this week when Damon Tucker and I wrap up The Mandalorian, Episode 3. Thanks for watching. Peace.